Good morning, good afternoon, or good night. Welcome to another edition of our Dailyish Devotionals. And this is Thursday, day one, without Tracy and Alex in the house. They've left for Grandma and Grandpa's. They've left Isaac and I to our own devices. So, as of today, we are well fed, dressed, probably even showered and groomed. So we're doing good so far. It is a bit quieter in the house, and the dog is moping. A quick aside on our dog. He used to like me, and now he can't stand me. And honestly, nothing has changed except the pandemic. It used to just be me and him in the house, and he'd go over to church with me, and he seemed to enjoy me. He'd like to go to walks in the morning. He'd even hang out next to me on the couch and such, and even once in a while I'd sleep in my bed. But ever since the pandemic, he wants nothing to do with me. I come in the room, he leaves. I go downstairs. If he's downstairs, he comes upstairs. I ask him in the morning if he'd like to go for a walk. He looks at me. Go for a walk, I said. He proceeds to turn his head and walk the other direction and go downstairs. The dog has disowned me. I am the one that procures his medicine, takes him to the groomer, to the vet, make sure he has food on time each month, and this is how the mutt repays me. So I'm teaching him a lesson. He's off to the doggy pound for a couple weeks. And when he gets back, he better appreciate how good he really has it here and show me a little gratitude and love, or to be off to the doggy pound again until he figures out how good he really has it. Okay. I didn't say the dog to the pound, but all that other stuff is true. He didn't like me anymore. Maybe he never liked me, and he was just forced to like me because I was the only human left during the day. Either way, it's weird. Maybe I need to put bacon treats in my pocket and he'd be around me more often. Anyway, that's much ado about nothing. More than you ever wanted to know about our dog situation at the house here. I decided to continue with the 80s theme of movies. One of the great ones. Even inspired a friend to join the Navy. Top Gun was a good movie. It is a good movie. It probably holds up. I think it's fairly family friendly. Yeah, it's okay. PG-13 maybe. You should watch it. I used to have a friend that would put together a bunch of tower speakers and crank it up and watch the movie once a year. Looking back, that's kind of weird. But it's a good movie to watch anyway. And of course, our Bible pun. What I said was, I'll make the frankincense, you get the mermaid. Get it? Make the myrrh or mermaid. That's good. Good stuff. While I was tempted to have the volleyball scene with no shirts and blue jeans as the background, I thought I'd go with one of the funnier scenes in the movie when they were inverted. Over the MiG, we'll say, but I thought it would be easier to look at that for the background. We're going through the Sermon on the Mount, and it's through a book titled What If Jesus Was Serious by Skye Jethani. I'm going to butcher that name every time, but it's What If Jesus Was Serious. And he's going through the Sermon on the Mount and taking a little different reading on it. And his basic premise, if you don't remember, says, compare Jesus' teachings to a quick survey of how Christians live, and one thing becomes apparent. We often ignore much of what he says. This is probably true. Don't get started on the rant. I posted an article on Facebook of the myth of Christian America and how this pandemic has shown that we're not a Christian nation, right? I mean, the whole uproar over put a mask on or not. If it's to help protect your neighbor and love your neighbor, why wouldn't you put one on? Anyway, that's a rabbit hole I don't want to get down, because I won't stop talking about this whole notion of my personal liberty and all this other stuff where we're asked to help someone else and to help someone. It's a simple act. Oh, sorry, I'm going down the road, stopping. If Jesus was serious, then we will focus more on his good news and less on religious to-dos. The first part of the Sermon on the Mount. Seeing the crowds, he went up on the mountain, and when he sat down, his disciples came to him. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the poor in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Blessed are the poor, those who mourn, the meek, those who are hungry, merciful, pure in heart, and peacemakers. Many times, Mr. Jathani goes on to say in his book that we read the Bible for description or for prescription instead of description. Like some people read the calling of Peter when Peter's called from being a fisherman to go to fishermen and say that's the expectation of all Christians. And if you don't do it, then you're not doing it right. But they ignore the other stories where Jesus gives would-be disciples callings very different from Peter's, and even tells those that want to follow to go home. It's not, the story of Peter's calling is not to prescribe what all believers should do. The story is simply meant to describe what Peter should do, or did do. Then we get to the list here of blessed are those. The same confusion. It becomes a prescription for what Christians are supposed to be. They're supposed to all of a sudden be meek and peaceful. Such a reading will lead us to believe being joyful or courageous is ungodly, and that sadness and weakness are true signs of spiritual maturity. Jesus is not prescribing how to be blessed, but rather describing who is blessed. While the world says the strong, powerful, and happy are well off, Jesus turns our expectations upside down by saying it's the meek or the weak, the sad, and the overlooked who are well off in God's kingdom. Stanley Hauerwas puts it this way: too often those characteristics of the Beatitudes are turned into ideals we must strive to attain. As ideals, they can become formulas for power rather than descriptions of the kind of people characteristic of the new age brought by Christ. Jesus does not tell us that we should try to become poor in spirit or meek or peacemakers. He simply says that many who are called into the kingdom will find themselves so constituted. The beginning of the Sermon on the Mount is not a to-do list. It's a good news list. Jesus is describing who has the most to gain by the arrival of the kingdom. He's not prescribing what we must do to obtain entry into the kingdom. I think we do that too much with a lot of the Bible. We take it as prescription instead of description. Meaning you have to do this exact way or you're not a good enough Christian. Then it becomes a whole other layer of guilt, and I'm better at doing it than you are, and all becomes a comparison thing and all that stuff that turns people off from Christianity. Instead of just a description. Hey, here's who God says are blessed. And the good news to those that are poor and weak and overlooked and sad. Because we probably all are going to be there on some spectrum of our life. And if we think that God or the only people that get it are those that are powerful and strong and famous, we would do good to remember that God says, nope, these people here are also blessed. Maybe even more blessed. So look at it as a description of who will be blessed by the kingdom of God, and just use it as kind of a guide to say, where do I see God's blessings? Right? Only in the good, the powerful, the famous, or can I see blessings in other parts of my life and other people too? I hope so.